Important: this training video is intended purely to provide support regarding the procedure to assemble the crane, and in no way replaces the operator's manual. Danger and warning messages are detailed in the operator's manual. For remote control assembly, the receiver is inserted and activated via the blue socket on the undercarriage. Using the support cylinders, the basic machine is then leveled at the minimum height to assemble the crawler side frames. Through constant visual checks, ensure that the air bubble in the spirit level does not move beyond the outer circle and cause the device to tip backwards. It is advisable to always extend at least 2 support cylinders at the same time. After the support cylinders have been extended so that the ground clearance is sufficient to attach the crawler side frames, the air bubble of the spirit level must be leveled at least in the inner circle. Now prepare the self-assembly cylinder in A-frame 1 for its first use. Fold the A-frame 1 forwards and extend the cylinder for attaching the sling gear. Hook the sling gear into the fork of the cylinder and secure the pin again using the locking spring. The A-frame 1 can now be moved to the required working position by hoisting the boom luffing winch. Always observe the information in the operator's manual. Attach the sling gear to the 3 folding brackets provided on the crawler side frame. Always ensure that the pins are secured with the appropriate locking device. When lifting the crawler side frame for the first time, ensure that it is as horizontal as possible and not at an angle to the undercarriage of the basic machine. If the crawler side frame hangs at an angle, fine adjustments can be made on the folding brackets using the adjustment screws. Make sure that you have already carried out the necessary preparations listed in the operator's manual before attaching the crawler side frames. This refers to examples such as flipping up the locking device for the pin and lubricating the surfaces with grease, to name but a few. Now move the crawler side frame by lifting the A-frame 1 and extending the self-assembly cylinder to the assembly position on the undercarriage. Pin the attached crawler side frame to the undercarriage and secure the pin with the locking element provided. Finally, insert the locking pin from above. Important: use suitable lubricants. Repeat the above procedure with the second crawler side frame. Move the cabin back into the horizontal position and reactivate the radio remote control assembly via the switch on the blue socket on the undercarriage. The support cylinders can now be retracted. Unlock and swing the swing brackets into the transport position. Then ensure that the swing brackets have been locked in accordance with the operator's manual. Now that the support cylinders are in their transport position, the support pads in the brackets, the crawler chain assembly aids in place, and the quick latch couplings of the crawler side frames properly connected, the basic machine is mobile and can be moved. To gain additional space for mounting the carbide counterweight, use the cabin tilting function and tilt the cabin as far upwards as possible. Now lift the individual slabs of the central ballast into the brackets provided on the crawler side frames using the self-assembly cylinder in A-frame 1. Ensure that the individual slabs are positioned accurately. Now align the upper carriage parallel to the undercarriage and mount the platforms on the undercarriage. When lifting in the platforms, ensure that they are fully positioned on the slabs of the carbide counterweight. All assembly steps on the undercarriage and the crawler side frames are now complete. The next step is to build up the required rear counterweight in accordance with the operator's manual and load chart. Again, ensure that the components are correctly positioned and in full contact with each other. Now attach the lashing of the rear counterweight. Bolt this to the base slab of the rear counterweight and tighten the bolt in the last step of the lashing process. Repeat these steps on all lashings. To mount the rear counterweight on the basic machine, swing the upper carriage so that the self-assembly cylinders of the rear counterweight face towards the counterweight. Make sure that the front slinging plates on the rear counterweight are folded down. Ease the basic machine into the rear counterweight with the help of a signaler. You can now fold the two front slinging plates upwards and secure them. Connect the chain of the assembly cylinders to the links and secure the pins using the locking springs. Repeat this step with all 4 attachment points. For radio remote control assembly, insert the receiver in the blue socket on the upper carriage and activate it with the switch. Now lift the complete and properly lashed rear counterweight using the assembly cylinders. Pin the rear counterweight to the upper carriage and secure the pins using the available spring cutter pins. The last step is to completely retract the assembly cylinders for the rear counterweight. Make sure that the brackets on the cylinder do not twist. The basic machine is complete, and we can now move on to assembling the derrick boom. Thread the forks of the 3-meter section into the fingers of the 12-meter section. Always ensure that the surfaces of all pin connections are clean. If necessary, clean the bore holes and use suitable lubricants. Always ensure that the locking springs can move freely inside and outside after inserting the pins. Now fit the derrick head with the suspended counterweight cylinder. The next step is to mount the base section of the derrick boom. Lift the base section, thread the forks into the fingers. Make sure the surfaces are clean and use suitable lubricants. After inserting the pins, check that the locking springs move freely. Now that you have pinned all sections of the derrick boom together in accordance with the operator's manual, the next step is to connect the hydraulics and electrics of the derrick boom. If necessary, use a strap wrench to close the quick latch couplings properly and completely. Pay attention to loops at the transitions between the individual sections. Due to the movement that occurs in the boom during operation, you must build in reserves here to prevent tensile load on the respective lines. After you have connected the hydraulic lines and electric cables, remove the pendant strap locking device from the boom and place it in the parking position provided for this purpose within the section. Next, close the flap element at the joint between the 3-meter and 12-meter sections to create a continuous walkway. Lock the flap element and check the walkway and the fall protection according to the operator's manual. This is followed by work steps that you can no longer carry out from the ground. Protect yourself and use the fall protection. Now connect the pendant straps of the derrick boom and the suspended counterweight. Again, ensure that the surfaces are clean. Use suitable lubricants and check that the locking springs move freely after inserting the pins. Check the correct arrangement of the pendant straps using the documents supplied. When leaving the boom, check the entire boom again. Always make sure that no parts or tools have been forgotten on the boom. Your colleagues will thank you for it. After you have checked the derrick boom again, it can be attached to the basic machine. To do this, drive with the basic machine to the derrick boom, which has been assembled according to the operator's manual. Position the basic machine with travel direction towards the derrick boom. Connect the assembly cylinder in A-frame 1 to the derrick boom according to the operator's manual. Now raise the derrick boom slightly and remove the inner and outer locking plates on the forks of the derrick. To avoid damage, make sure that you do not pull the derrick boom on the ground when raising it. Now raise the derrick boom and move the basic machine until the forks of the base section are just in front of the pins of the A-frame 1. Now remove the locking elements on the pin of the A-frame 1. Check the surfaces for contamination and damage. Use suitable lubricants and now fully insert the fork on the derrick base section into the pins of A-frame 1. Make sure that the pins on the left and right hand sides enter synchronously. The inner and outer locking plates can now be fitted to the base section of the derrick boom. If the position of the pin in A-frame 1 is not correct and the locking plate cannot be fitted, fit the outer locking plate according to the operator's manual and align the affected pin using a plastic hammer. Finally, check all the screws on the inner and outer locking plates again. You have now established the connection between the derrick boom and the basic machine and secured it. Attach an auxiliary rope, approximately 15 meters long, to the end of the pendant straps of the suspended counterweight cylinder in the direction of the base section. You can use the auxiliary rope to guide the pendant straps of the suspended counterweight cleanly past the A-frame 1 of the basic machine. You can now release the assembly cylinder in A-frame 1 and remove the connection to the base section of the derrick boom. Retract the assembly cylinder completely. In the next step, lower the A-frame 1 and connect the pendant straps of the A-frame 1 to the pendant straps of the derrick boom. Check the correct pin connection position of the pendant straps using the operator's manual supplied. Now connect the hydraulic lines from the upper carriage to the derrick boom. If necessary, use a strap wrench to close the quick latch couplings properly and completely. Make sure that the couplings are not under pressure. To ensure this, switch off the diesel engine. You can then remove the bypass plug on the upper carriage and plug in the electrical connection of the derrick boom here. Place the bypass plug in the parking position provided. Important. After you have connected the hydraulics and electrics, carry out a brief function test. Among other things, check the function of the tilting back supports and the function of the suspended counterweight cylinder by actively moving these functions. Once you have checked the functions of the derrick boom, start preparing the derrick's rope pulley set. Remove the rope protection from the boom head and fold down the arms of the transport bracket from the derrick rope pulley support and pin the bracket in place. Use suitable lubricants and secure the pins using the locking springs. Remove the polyamide rollers from the transport bracket and drive into the rope pulley set with the derrick boom raised. Important. If you carry out a work step directly on a rope pulley during the entire assembly process, invest a few extra minutes and check the condition of the individual rope pulleys. The test criteria can be found in the operator's manual. Then, secure the rope pulley set again with the polyamide rollers to prevent it from slipping, and finally, remove the rope protection from the rope pulley set. Now, in accordance with the reeving plan in the operator's manual, reeve an auxiliary rope through the derrick rope pulley set and the pulley set in the head, and then pull this through the boom to the derrick adjusting winch. Pay attention to the correct reeving and rope guide. Connect the auxiliary rope to the rope of the derrick adjusting winch. Now carefully and slowly operate the derrick lowering function and pull the auxiliary rope at the same time. Observe the derrick winch at all times and avoid slack rope formation. Now, we apply all rope protection on the derrick head. Secure each rope protection with the respective locking spring. You can now remove the polyamide rollers that hold the rope pulley set. Now, drive backwards with the crane and unthread the transport bracket from the rope pulley set and raise the derrick boom. Make sure that the derrick adjustment rope does not jump out of the rope pulleys. Check the rope lock for damage before installation. Now fit the rope lock on the derrick head. Pay attention to the correct position, which you can find in the operator's manual, and secure the rope lock with the locking spring. Thread the rope into the rope lock and ensure that the rope is properly engaged, in accordance with the operator's manual. Now raise the derrick boom and position it in the center above the rope pulley set. You can now raise the entire rope pulley set and refit the rope protection on both sides of the rope pulley set. Secure all rope protection with a respective locking spring. Make sure that the rope of the derrick winch is properly positioned in each of the rope pulleys. You can now raise the entire derrick boom and start assembling the main boom. Now, assemble the required sections of the main boom according to the operator's manual. Thread the forks of each section into the fingers of the following section and pin them. Again, ensure that the surfaces of all pin connections are clean. If necessary, clean the bore holes and use suitable lubricants. Again, make sure that the locking springs can move freely inside and outside after inserting the pins. Caution: depending on the boom length, the use of a midpoint suspension may be necessary. The installation position and the required lengths can be found in the operator's manual. Once you have connected the walkway at all section joints from below, you can now remove the transport safety device from the pendant straps on the boom and subsequently connect them to each other. Check the correct arrangement of the pendant straps in accordance with the operator's manual. Remove any pendant straps from the main boom that are not required so as not to unnecessarily reduce the maximum load capacity of the machine. Now, install the rope guide on the main boom. The correct installation position can be found in the operator's manual. If you want to attach a luffing jib, connect the pendant straps of the luffing jib to the main boom. Subsequently, lay the electrical cable for the main boom electrics. Again, ensure there are loops at the section transitions. Secure the electric cable with the corresponding strain relief using the carabiner. If this has not already been done during preparation, replace the pendant straps on the main boom head with the pendant straps for derrick operation. You can recognize the pendant straps for derrick operation, among other things, by the tension link load cells built into them. For details of a required length or arrangement, please refer to the operator's manual supplied. Ensure that the polyamide washers are in the correct position on the inside of the connection links. Now move the traverse with the derrick winch and fit the sling gear for mounting the main boom on the basic machine. Haul the derrick boom to a maximum of 70 degrees, which corresponds to a minimum radius of 11.5 meters. Position the basic machine so that you only need to move forwards after raising the main boom. Caution: the position of the sling gear varies with the length of your main boom. Correspondingly, attach the sling gear installed on the traverse to the main boom according to the position in the operator's manual. Incorrect positioning of the attachment points of the main boom can cause tipping backwards when the angle from the derrick boom exceeds 70 degrees during assembly. Now carefully raise the main boom using the lifting function of the derrick winch and drive the basic machine to the base section of the main boom. For radio remote control assembly, insert the receiver in the blue socket on the upper carriage and activate it with the switch. You can now operate the pin connection of the main boom on the left and right separately, using the radio remote control. Extend the cylinders completely and secure the pins using the locking elements. Now take the load off the sling gear on the main boom by lowering the derrick winch. You can now remove the sling gear and connect the hydraulic and electrical connections from the main boom to the upper carriage. Switch off the diesel engine to ensure proper connection of the quick latch coupling. This ensures that there is no pressure in the hydraulic system. Now you can connect and lock the coupling according to the operator's manual. Again, ensure that the coupling is fully closed when locking. As a visual aid, pay attention to the two indicating pins on the side of the coupling. Thread the cables through the opening in the front end closing. Connect the electrics and secure them with the locks provided. Make sure that the cables are not under tension and have sufficient space. Then connect the electrics from the main boom to the basic machine. It is always advisable to check the respective plugs. Pay attention to any corrosion of the pins and check that the pins are properly locked. You can now connect the pendant straps of the main boom to the traverse of the rope pulley set. Lower the derrick boom and connect the pendant straps using the links. Subsequently, check the main boom's pendant straps again and make sure that you have not forgotten any tools or other items on the boom. In the next step, the derrick boom is brought into the working position. Ensure that the main boom always remains on the ground while the derrick boom is being raised. At an angle of 70 degrees of the derrick boom, the cam limit switch for assembly area derrick boom is triggered and the function is stopped. Important: now bypass the limit switches on the X23 control panel. Press and hold the button and continue the erection process. At an angle of approximately 72 degrees, you have passed the cam limit switch and can release the button again. Pay attention to the correct positioning of the forks of the derrick tilting back supports. If the position has changed, retract and extend the tilting back supports again, and turn the forks to the correct position during this process. Caution: finally, make sure that you have activated the tilting back support function. From this point, also pay attention to the pendant straps from the suspended counterweight and guide them past the A-frame one with the auxiliary ropes. Caution: now deactivate the bypass limit switch function on the X23 control panel. It is now important that you guide the forks of the derrick tilting back supports on the upper carriage into the attachment pins provided. Control this process at all times. Raise the derrick boom to an angle of 118 degrees. At this angle, the cam limit switch for assembly area derrick boom is activated and the function is stopped. Raise the extension device at the attachment points provided using suitable sling gear and position the device at the pin connection points on the upper carriage. Again, look out for damage to the bore holes and clean off any contamination. Use suitable lubricants and pin the device to the upper carriage according to the operator's manual. Once you have established the connection between the extension device and the upper carriage, you can now connect the pendant straps from the suspended counterweight to the device. Remove the auxiliary ropes and pin the pendant straps to the device in accordance with the operator's manual. Now connect the electrics and hydraulics of the extension device to the upper carriage. Furthermore, the pendant straps can be fitted from the extension device to the counterweight frame. Please refer to the operator's manual for details and the correct lengths. Now position the counterweight frame behind the extension device and start assembling the suspended counterweight according to the load chart and operator's manual. Stack the counterweight slabs symmetrically on the frame and make sure that they rest firmly on top of each other. Ensure that the counterweight slabs are positioned correctly in the locking device aids. Finally, set up the lashing of the suspended counterweight according to the operator's manual and secure it by tightening the screw provided. Once the counterweight frame has been fully ballasted and the individual counterweight slabs have been lashed together, raise the main boom. Next, position the extension device using the suspended counterweight cylinder and bring the machine into position for pinning the pendant straps of the extension device to the counterweight frame. You have now completed all the assembly steps for setting up the machine with derrick and main boom. In the next step, the base section of the luffing jib is attached to the main boom head. To do this, you need a hoist rope at the head, which can be pulled forwards with the rope reeving winch. Unlock the coupling of the rope reeving winch, which is located in the base section of the main boom. Pull the rope of the rope reeving winch underneath the main boom to the pulley set. Remove the rope protection on the main boom head and guide the rope back to the hoist winch via the pulleys. Ensure that the correct hoisting winch is used, details of which can be found in the operator's manual. After you have connected the rope from the rope reeving winch to the hoist rope, relock the coupling of the rope reeving winch. You can now pull the hoist rope to under the main boom head. Finally, remove the connection to the rope of the rope reeving winch. Now start with the preparations for mounting the base section of the luffing jib on the main boom head. For better and safer installation of the base section of the luffing jib, underpin the main boom head according to the manuals. Also underpin the tilting back supports of the luffing jib's base section. Now raise the base section of the luffing jib. First thread in the mechanical tilting back supports of the main boom head, and then lower the luffing jib base section until you can insert the main pins. Again, look for damage and check the surfaces. Use suitable lubricants. Secure the pins using the locking plates provided. Caution: ensure that the locking plate is in the correct position and thread it neatly into the groove on the pin. Ensure the correct torque for the locking plate screws. The correct torque for the screws can be found in the operator's manual. Now connect the rope lock to the sling gear attached to a frame 2. Thread the hoist rope into the rope lock. Caution: ensure that the rope lock is properly locked in accordance with the operator's manual. Next, connect the electrics of the luffing jib's base section to the main boom head. Caution: ensure that the cable is correctly laid and that there is sufficient looping while laying the cables. Reopen the coupling of the rope reeving winch in the base section of the main boom. Haul the rope of the rope reeving winch over the main boom head back to the luffing jib winch. Open the rope guide and ensure that the rope is correctly positioned. The hoist winch rope is positioned beside the rope guide. Close the coupling of the rope reeving winch in the base section and now lower the luffing winch. And at the same time, activate the hoisting of the rope reeving winch. Once the luffing winch rope is at the base section of the luffing jib, close the rope guide on the main boom again. Now remove the rope protection from the base section of the luffing jib and attach the rope of the luffing winch to the auxiliary rope in the luffing jib pulley set. Now pull the rope of the luffing winch through the pulley sets of the A-frames 2 and 3 using the auxiliary rope and a suitable pulling device. You can also use the rope reeving winch here. Caution: check the correct reeving of the auxiliary rope before pulling the rope forwards. After you have reeved the rope of the luffing winch, connect the rope of the luffing winch to the rope lock. Replace all rope protection on the A-frames 2 and 3 of the luffing jib. Caution: pay attention to which rope protection you have removed from which holder. Different lengths are used here. Next, the tilting back supports of the luffing jib are connected to the main boom head. To do this, carefully pull the rope of the hoist winch backwards. At the same time, lower the luffing winch and open the two A-frames 2 and 3. Raise the A-frame 2 with the hoist winch until you can insert the pins of the tilting back supports on the side of the main boom head. Again, ensure that a suitable lubricant is used. Bolt the tilting back supports of the luffing jib and secure the pins with the correct spring cotter pins. Using the hoist rope, now pull the A-frame 2 of the luffing jib in order to pin the pendant straps to the machine. Watch out for collisions to the rope pulleys in the A-frame 2 and in the main boom head. Caution: make sure that at least 100 millimeters of the piston rod are visible at the luffing jib's tilting back supports. You can control this by lowering the luffing winch and thus lowering the A-frame 3. Use the connection links to pin the pendant straps of the luffing jib base section to those of the main boom. Caution: check the length of the pendant straps. Please refer to the operator's manual for the correct lengths. Finally, fold the empty connection links of the pendant straps on the main boom head towards the machine. This prevents damage when the boom is subsequently erected. Now release the hoist rope and disassemble the rope lock. Now assemble the required luffing jib length. Again, look out for damage to the bore holes. Clean the surfaces and use suitable lubricants. Also ensure that the locking springs can move freely once the pins have been inserted. Caution: check the operator's manual to see whether you require a rope guide and a midpoint suspension for the length of your luffing jib. If necessary, install them according to the operator's manual. Now connect the pendant straps of the luffing jib to the connection links. Always ensure that the correct lengths are used. To connect the pendant straps of the A-frame 3 with the pendant straps of the luffing jib section, fold the A-frame towards the machine using the luffing winch. Caution: make sure that at least 100 millimeters of the piston rod are visible at the luffing jib's tilting back supports. Unhook the pendant straps in the A-frame 3 of the luffing jib from their transport safety devices. Caution: as you cannot set the A-frame 3 to 90 degrees, the pendant straps swing forwards after removal. Connect the pendant straps to those of the luffing jib. Now connect the electrics in the luffing jib by pulling the connecting cable from the base section to the luffing jib head. Again, ensure there are loops at the section transitions and secure the cable with strain relief. Now mount the aircraft warning light and the anemometer. Remove the rope protection on the luffing jib head in A-frames 3 and 2 on the main boom head. Open the rope guide and prepare everything for reeving the hoist rope. Observe the operator's manual for the use of the correct hoisting winch and check the reeving plans. Reopen the coupling of the rope reeving winch in the base section of the main boom. Haul the rope of the rope reeving winch over the luffing jib head back to the hoist winch. Caution: open the rope guide and ensure that the rope is correctly positioned. This can be found in the operator's manual. After you have connected the rope from the rope reeving winch to the hoist rope, relock the coupling of the rope reeving winch in the base section. Accordingly, steer the hoisting winch in the direction of lowering and activate the hoisting of the rope reeving winch at the same time. When you have reached the luffing jib head with the hoist rope, stop the work step and reinsert the upper rope protection on the luffing jib head. Repeat this step with the hoist rope for the main boom head if required. Finally, make sure that you have fitted and secured all rope protection at the top of the luffing jib head, in the A-frames 3 and 2 of the luffing jib, and in the main boom head. Also make sure that the ropes are in the correct pulley of the rope guide and close the rope pulley. The rope positions can be found in the operator's manual. Caution: these were the final work steps on the boom system. Again, check all connections and ensure that no parts or tools have been forgotten on the boom. Important: always check that the sensors, the limit switches, and the installed lighting function properly before raising the boom. Now raise up the boom system and reeve the respective hook blocks according to the reeving plan and operator's manual. Once you have also inserted and secured the lower rope protection, fit the respective hoist limit switches. Repeat the steps just described with the luffing jib. Now you can raise the entire boom system according to the operator's manual. Deactivate the assembly mode after reaching the approved working range and the valid load chart and switch to the desired operating mode. After a final check that all limit switches function correctly, you can start working with your Liebherr crawler crane. Your machine is now ready for operation.